Hi and welcome to A Court of Mist and Fury. And I will be now referencing to it only as the Feminist Manifesto. You know, he said women are not only for breeding, and I really felt that. Plenty of sass, sexual tension, and female empowerment. And on the seventh day, Lysander, High Lord of the Night Court, came down from the mountain and declared, "Any broad, whether her ass is fat or flat, shall have rights, if it's convenient for me and or makes me feel guilty." Now this cover is of course different from the first one I had. And you know, apparently they changed the cover. The older versions are like $40 per book, and I don't have this kind of money. But please know that if you designed these new covers, that I hate them. You know, it's a typical second middle book. There's just like a lot of going places and planning stuff and actually setting up the plot of the final book, the big showdown. So at the same time, nothing happens, but like a lot happens. So I need to tell you a lot. So, we open at the Spring Court. About 3 months have passed since the end of the first book, and guess what? Tamlin and Feyre are about to get married. All the people in the towns around the Spring Court, like all of their citizens and people in the court in general, have returned. They were apparently kept in concentration camps, which is, you know, a nice little thing they pepper in there, but they seem to be fine now. You would think that Feyre would finally be happy, but she's not. She's engaged and absolutely miserable. She sort of still grapples with what she experienced at Amarantha, how she killed those two innocent fairies, and adjusting to her like new strength and body. And Tamlin and Lucien are having none of it. She is sad a lot. She can't paint, and she throws up all the time, which immediately struck me as a red flag, because I hate pregnancy in books. And the way this entire book's hinted at a future pregnancy makes me very nervous. I don't mind like pushing in a baby in the last 10 pages, but if Feyre gets pregnant, I'm out. So Tamlin also still sort of grapples with what happens. He also has PTSD, but his manifests in not letting Feyre do anything. She just sits in the house and has guards. There's this new girl named Iante, whose thing is that she's like a high priestess, which are some of the like occult religious people in this world. And Iante is super nice, and she helps Feyre do all this womanly stuff that she is so bad at, like planning parties, planning her wedding. Iante is so suspicious. Lucien doesn't do shit. He's so whiny, and he just does everything that Tamlin tells him, even though it's a bad idea, and he knows like Feyre is not doing well, but he doesn't care. Oh, also in those 3 months, Lysander hasn't shown up yet, even though she's supposed to spend a week a month with him until eternity. Because it's like not courtly or whatever, she's not allowed to attend like any meetings, and Tamlin doesn't tell her anything. The day of her wedding arrives, and Feyre is miserable. She like hates her dress and everything sucks. Then she walks down the aisle, hating everything, hating her life. She just really thinks, man, I want to get out of here. What happens? Poof, Lysander shows up, and he calls in his bargain right then and there. And they dip. He takes her to this nice house, this I think on a mountain. You know, I'm never too sure where they are. And like she heard that the night court was like this bad place full of like torture and screams. But it's not. It's actually kind of nice. The house at least. Then a shocking scene follows. Something that I was not prepared for. He teaches her how to read. Something feels sexist about that, you know. She also meets Lysander's cousin, Moringhan. More. She's important later. He teaches her how to read and how to block his powers from her head. It doesn't matter. She just like relaxes. However, while she is still all mad at him, he finally tells her some shit about what's going on. So apparently the King of Hybern is readying his armies because there's going to be a war. And Lysander thinks that Feyre has super special powers because of course she has. Because like she was revived with the power of all the seven lords. He thinks that she has parts of their power in her. Yeah. He just says that and then she goes back. 7 days have passed. So she returns and Tamlin and Lucian interrogate her. Oh my god, he is evil. What did he do to you, baby? And what is the night court like? Because nobody knows, you know, people who go there don't come back usually. They interrogate her and she asks about the war. But Tamlin's like, no, don't worry, baby girl, just sit at home. Now, get this shit. So she had like a fight with Lysander about how like miserable she is. She's like, I'm not miserable. And he's like, you are miserable, bitch. And she's like, okay, he's right. So she goes to Tamlin and basically says, I'm suffocating. I'm so sad. I hate it. I hate this life. And then he gets mad. He gets mad and he blows up like his library. And he's like, oh babe, I'm so sorry I was mad. You know, gaslighting the fuck out of her. Then, you know, some stuff happens. She goes back to the night court for another week. Nothing really happens. She goes back to Tamlin and she's like, hey, so Lysander thinks I have these powers. Should I like train them or whatever? It could be a weapon, an asset, something to do. And then Tamlin's like, no, we don't need you. Like that would raise too much suspicion. Put a target on your back. And Lucian like kind of wants to say something, but he doesn't. I just don't like Lucian. I hope he dies. I hope he sacrifices himself. Now, the plot finally picks up in pace. Okay, get this. There's something happened on the land, and Tamlin and Lucian decide to go check it out. And Feyre, thinking she needs to be more assertive, says, let me go with you guys. And Tamlin says no. Not only does he say no, he locks her in the house. And rightfully so. Feyre gets an absolute panic attack. You know, she's set in a jail cell for several months. She freaks out and black magic comes out of her, knocks out all like the guards and the servants, and then she blacks out. However, she gets rescued by Mor and Lysander. They have a direct link through the tattoo, so Lysander sort of knows what she's feeling and thinking at all times. Cool. She goes back to the night court and then Lysander shows her a place in the night court she hasn't seen before. Verilus. It's a city that's been hidden for 5,000 years, so not even Amarantha knew about it. And Lysander like blocked out all the memories of this town from anybody that ever came into Under the Mountain. Anyway, nobody knows about it but the people that live there. You know, I found that highly improbable because don't the people there ever want to leave? I mean, I guess it's so good that they don't want to leave. Verilus is really great and it's really pretty. And there's art and culture. And everybody loves Lysander. So Feyre thinks, hey, maybe he's not that bad of a guy. And Lysander describes that there are like 2 parts of the night court. One is the Court of Dreams, which is Verilus, where everybody's happy. And there's a dark side called the Court of Nightmares, which is under the mountain, where his house is on top. And there everyone sucks. They don't get to be happy. They don't get to see it, you know, which I'm also confused. Is nobody in the Court of Nightmares good? Does nobody of them deserve to be in the Court of Dreams? Thoughts. And then he asks her to join his little anti-Hybern club. And she doesn't say yes, but he says, hey, meet my friends for dinner. They are also all in my club. He flies her there. Lysander has wings now. and I'm not too sure about the wings. They have dinner. She meets all of his friends who also think that he's super nice and they love him. And of course she decides to join them. So now I have to tell you who's in the group. There's Cassian and Azriel. They are Illyrian Warriors, which is a group of lesser fairy, but I don't really understand what separates them from regular high fairies. They have jewels on their body, and Azriel is like a spy master, whatever that means. They're childhood best friends of Lysander. There's more, of course, his cousin, and Amren. And Amren is an old monster before Faye even lived on Earth, who lost her home, and she's in the body of a girl. So Amren is Lysander's second in command, and she's like all creepy, and Mor is his third in command. The book here starts to undermine how incredibly feminist Lysander is for choosing two women to be his second in command. The first step to defeating the King of Hybern is going to see this monster called the Bone Carver, and nobody explains why he knows things, but he just knows things. He confirms that the king resurrected Jurian. Why are all these unnecessary people that I don't care about in there? He also wants some magical artifacts because of course he does. He wants the feet of the cauldron that apparently gave life to this entire world. And he wants 2 halves of a book that you can use to control the cauldron to its full abilities. And with the cauldron, he wants to bring the wall down. He apparently already has the feet of the cauldron. He stole those from like a couple of temples, and that was sprinkled in the beginning. So 1 half of the book is in the summer court, and the other half of the book is with the mortal queens on the mortal part. If they get the book, they can essentially like go and destroy the cauldron. Next in the story, they go and visit Nesta and Elaine. I was almost hoping that they would never show up again, but no, I was disappointed. They go there so that they can write a letter to the mortal queens, because apparently you can't write letters in Prythian. So they write a letter to the mortal queens saying like, hey, there's a war, come meet with us, give us the book. And while they're there, the adder comes, you know? The adder disappeared sort of at the end of the first book. And he comes and he wants to abduct Feyre because the king of Hybern really wants Feyre. I think we're about 200 pages into the book, and Feyre is already like fully ready to leave Tamlin behind. She writes him a letter saying that she's fine, to not worry, that she went because she wanted to, and to not come look for her, and that she doesn't want to be with him anymore. You know, not that I want her to be with Tamlin, I never did, but it's just all so easy. You would think there would be more conflict there, you know, she loved him, but she very quickly realizes after like a day that he's the wrong one. Insert Feyre's training montage. Because the plot drags on forever, we go to this person called the Weaver to test out if Feyre is like some magical bloodhound, that she can sort of just sense magical artifacts that belong to the High Lords, but seeing them. So she goes to retrieve a ring that he lost. Yes, a ring. Sarah J. Maas is definitely not a subtle person. Next scene. They go to the summer court, and there's this new High Lord called Tarquin. Tarquin's like really nice, and he likes them. And Feyre likes Tarquin. They become besties. And they use that for him to like sort of escort her around, and she sniffles for the magic book that they're looking for. They eventually find it. It's like on an island, and her and Amren get it. And they almost die, but then they don't. Lysander flirts with a princess, and Feyre gets mad, but she doesn't realize why she's mad, and she just doesn't want to think that he would sleep with another woman. The book is in some language that only Amren can understand, because Amren is super old, and isn't it very convenient that Amren is just right there. And Lysander, because he's so good, hopes that the book also has secrets of how Amren can go back to her own sort of world or reality. And it's just again played up how Lysander is like a good guy. There's a lot of these moments there, and I hate it. You know, I was fully prepared to think Lysander was like this brooding hunk of a man, dark hair and wings, yes. I was fully prepared to throw myself behind him. He's just what I thought Tamlin would be, which is like nice the entire time, like super into her thoughts and feelings. And it sort of makes him boring. It makes him boring. Now, finally, Feyre, who's always in the dark about everything, learns some new information. And when I read this, I was so disappointed. I was so disappointed in Sarah. My eyes rolled so far back that I was afraid they would get stuck. Okay. Apparently, during the First War, there was this chick named Miriam, and she is a half fae, half human. She lived in Hybern, I think, as a slave. She was gifted as a concubine to some fairy prince named Drakon, who was so grossed out that she was a slave that he let her go, and she fled to a human war camp where she met Jurian. Jurian was that dude that killed and tricked Amarantha's sister, and Amarantha had a ring with his eye. Jurian and Miriam fell in love. However, at some point, Drakon was either trapped by the human forces or he joined them. I don't know. Behind Jurian's back, Drakon and Miriam fell in love because Jurian was too caught up with the war and revenge. Jurian blames Drakon for stealing her, and it was believed that both Drakon and Miriam died, but plot twist, they are both alive on some island. The king promised Jurian and Miriam back. You get it? Tamlin is Jurian, Miriam is Feyre, and Drakon is Lysander. Oh my god. Finally, they get word from the 7 mortal queens, and they go meet them at Nesta and Elaine's place. Her dad is away for 6 months, because this is secretly a Wattpad story. It's essentially the queens already know about the war, and they do not want to help the people that are on the island, you know, the same island as Prithian. They only really care about the continent where they live. And they don't want them to have the book, and furthermore they heard about sort of Lysander and how evil he is, and yeah. To sort of persuade them and to show them that he's actually a really good guy, Lysander comes up with this brilliant plan to show them Valaris. And because they can't just take them because they don't trust him, they have to get this thing called the orb. Why do they need that orb specifically? Who knows? You know, there are like 10,000 pages of explanations and unnecessary backstory to make me feel bad about every single one of these characters. They sort of skip that whole orb thing. The gang goes to the Court of Nightmares, and Lysander has to be an asshole there to keep sort of the nobility in check. So they put on this like grand show. And they pretend that Feyre is his, like, concubine. They put on this hot show. He, like, basically fingers her on his throne. But, of course, they're only friends. Anyways, they get the orb. This next part is super convoluted. And I don't know why any of it happens. They're somewhere, and someone shoots ash arrows at the fairies. They make a stop at an Illyrian war camp. They go to the same camp that Adriel, Lysander, and Cassian met at, because Lysander's actually half Illyrian. It's just a bunch of tragic backstory, and the book really wants you to think that Lysander's woke as shit for thinking that women should have rights. Like, the Illyrians have wings, but they clip the wings of the women so that they don't fly away and they can breed, and they're only there to cook and clean, and they are not allowed to be like warriors. And his mom hated that, and so she tried to like escape. And so now Lysander in her honor says, hey guys, don't clip their wings. They should train too. And they're like, no. And he's like, all right. I have noticed that Lysander's sort of feminism is very selective to things that only concern him. He put more in charge and is an asshole to her dad only because he feels bad for what he did to Moore. He only tells the Illyrians to train their women because he feels bad for his own mom. It's just, look at me. I'm so great. Women should have rights. In another episode of Backstory, and have you heard about this shit that Tamlin did, we learn why Tamlin and Lysander hate each other. Apparently, Lysander and Tamlin used to be like buddies. But then, Tamlin, I don't know why this happens, but like Tamlin snitched on the mom and the sister of Lysander, and then Tamlin, his dad, and his brothers went and killed Lysander's mom and sister. And as sort of revenge, then Lysander's father and Lysander went to the spring court and killed the mother and the brothers and the father of Tamlin. But shortly before, like, they could kill Tamlin, Lysander said, stop! There's been enough bloodshed. And in that moment, Tamlin killed Lysander's dad. Ooh, by the way, while training, Lucian and some spring court guards come out of the woodwork. They have tracked her, and I was so happy to see them. I actually missed them so much for the entirety of the book, because there's nothing that I love more than hot men fighting over women like their possessions, and then the woman saying, fuck you, and killing the man. I was waiting the entire time for like a big fight between Feyre and Tamlin. You know, I wanted blood to be drawn. I wanted hands to be thrown. I missed him so much. But Tamlin's not even there. It's just Lucian. And he's like, Feyre, don't do this. Come back. Tamlin's not been well since you left. He trashed everything. He's a violent asshole. Please, he can change. You know, he hasn't changed. Even though he told him several times that you're sad. But this time he will change. And she says no. And she grows wings. And she says, no, I don't want it. I'm not enchanted by Lysander. I don't want to go. I think at that point we're like over 2/3. And nothing happened. Her and Lysander have been dancing around each other like two dogs in heat. Nothing happened. So finally, the Wattpad gods from above have come down to deliver. So they go to an inn. You know, it's crowded. It's winter, it's cold. There's only one room left. And only one bed. And it's cold. There's no heating. They have to use body warm. They cuddle. And then he fingers her. Hold on, I shouldn't say fingered. I plan to live for the next 60 years, so maybe I should use like a cute euphemism. He detangles her bushes. I don't know who will see this, you know. I can't just live my life with knowing there's a video up somewhere of me talking about fingering. They kiss afterwards, but nothing else happens because, of course, Lysander cares more about her. He's a feminist. I notice that the romantic sort of urges in me are absolutely underdeveloped because my first instincts were not, oh my god, this is so cute. It was that they previously mentioned that there's only a communal bath downstairs, and they had just eaten previously to that, and he did not wash his hands. Sort of seems to me like he is trying to get her an infection. His eyes held mine, as he brought those fingers to his mouth and sucked on them, on the taste of me. The next day happens. They get attacked by Hybern's soldiers while training, and she gets free, but Lysander gets trapped, and so she rescues him, and all of a sudden she seems to have no qualms about killing people, as she murders all of the soldiers and takes him back. She also unlocks this new power called winnowing, which seems to me like apparition from Harry Potter. She frees Lysander, however he's badly hurt because he got shot with poisoned ash arrows. She brings him to a cave. She traps another Suriel, the same Suriel, and the Suriel basically tells her that her blood has healing power a la Klaus Michelson and should just let him drink her blood. And also he reveals to her, ba-dum-dum-dum, they have the mating bond, and that Lysander knows, and she's mad. So she feeds him her blood, and she's mad, and she says, bitch, let's go home, I'm mad at you. And she says to more, bitch, bring me somewhere that he can't find me, I'm mad. And she does bring her to some cabin in the woods. She really doesn't do much. She paints again. That's like a big wow, she can paint again. And she paints everything without asking. However, after 3 days, Lysander has figured out where she is, and he comes around. And he's like, I'm so sorry, I just didn't know how to tell you. I've always known. I've seen pictures of your dreams when you were still in the human world and haven't even met Tamlin. I was so heartbroken when I saw you for the first time and realized you were in love with Tamlin. I've loved you, baby girl. And then she's basically like, oh babe, I forgive you. You are my soulmate. And she accepts the mating bond. And then they shake a mountain. Do the sloppy toppy. She arrives into the station first. Because of course she does. Lysander's the ultimate feminist. He's a barb. It's just so boring. It's just, he doesn't have a knife kink. He's been nice this entire time. What do you want from me? There's nothing for me to like. Sadly, because him and Feyre are now openly in love, my interest started going away because I like to be miserable and happiness just doesn't do it for me. I want enemies to lovers, but please be enemies this entire time. They canoodle in the mountains for a few more days, and then he tells her that the Mortal Queens have agreed to another meeting. There's this conversation that they have that's already just furthering my fear that Feyre is pregnant. Which is that they talk about children, and he's like, you don't have to give me children if you don't want to. And as a reader, you're supposed to go like, oh my god! You mean I don't have to birth you children? Now we do. So they decide that she could go on contraceptives, but they still do it before she's on contraceptive. So they had unprotected relations, and I'm scared she's pregnant. Oh god, the way they talked about it. I want children, but not just now. I want to explore life with you, lover. Oh god, they're going to be so pregnant. You are not expected to bear me anything, he snarled. Children are rare, yes, so rare and so precious, but I don't want you to have them unless you want to, unless we both want to. And right now, with this work coming with Hybern, I'll admit that I'm terrified at the thought of my mate being pregnant. With so many enemies around us, I'm terrified of what I might do if you are pregnant and threatened or harmed. They meet with 2 of the 7 queens at their sister's house. They show one of them, Valaris, there's a golden one and the other one, the rest didn't come. They say, this city is so cute, we still won't give you the book. And then they leave. However, plot twist, the golden queen brought the book with her and he left it for them. Because apparently in the letter, Lysander said, please give the book to us. I'm so in love with Feyre. I love Feyre. Please give me the book. And she's like, I believe in your love. Here's the book. They take the book, they give it to Amren, she decodes it. Now, what happens? Bum bum bum, plot twist. The queens told the King of Hybern about Dolores. The soldiers come, they attack Dolores. The secret is not kept anymore. The body of the dead Golden Queen is there, which also doesn't make any sense, which I will explain later. However, they sort of fight it off, and there's another one of those scenes where, like, oh my god, Feyre, don't put yourself in danger, but it's okay if it's your choice, said Lysander, and the world exploded. The gang is super, like, aggravated and mad that the King of Hybern attacked their city. And so they decide to do a counter-strike because now they have a book, you know? If you are following, you might think, oh, this is so a trap. Yeah, it is. Of course it is. Basically, everyone but Amren goes to Hybern to destroy the cauldron. And Feyre has to say the spell that Amren decoded because power. They go there. They see the cauldron. It's a cauldron. And Feyre freezes. And she doesn't say it. And then they get shot by Jurian. Jurian is there. They go in front of the King of Hybern and he does some spells and they don't have his magic and they don't have any of their magic anymore. The plot unravels. So many people are there and they're bargaining all over the place. I wrote this down again. The King of Hybern is not sexy, by the way, which I'm sad about. So guess who's there? The queens, Tamlin and Lucien, and Nesta and Elaine. I'm never going to get rid of them. When Jurian got resurrected, he was sent to the mortal queens and told them some lies that Lysander would come to them and tell them about a war and that he would want to steal the book and so don't give them a book. And later it was confirmed to them that Lysander indeed was that big bad guy because Asriel had previously tried to sort of infiltrate the court with his spies, but he was unsuccessful. And he was unsuccessful because the King of Hybern put guards around it. So the 7 queens have been on the side of the King of Hybern this entire time. Also, because that cauldron can make you a fairy, aka immortal, and those 6 bitches want to be immortal, so they obviously told them about Velaris, which, like, The king also abducted Nesta and Elaine. He knows about them because of Iante, who is his bestie. She works with him because she wants the High Lords to go away so that the High Priestesses can rule Printhia. They were brought there to be the test animals for the cauldron so that the queens know it's safe. I feel like this is very inconvenient because the King of Hybern needs the help and assistance of Feyre, so why aggravate her? No, they could, like, use anybody else. Tamlin and Lucien are there because this bitch agreed to let the king start an invasion from the Spring Court and destroy the wall if he promises to give him Feyre back. So her sisters gets tossed in the soup and they are no immortal. So, get this bullshit. Lucien is Elaine's mate. Why? Who's to say? That is just fantastic. Seems like a disease. Poor Elaine. I forgot a lot of the details from the scene because it moves really fast and my brain can't keep up. But when Lysander wants to make some bargain with the king, Feyre freaks out and does some magic that undoes sort of the constraints for winnowing and basically unblocks their magic. She pretends that she just woke up from a curse that Lysander had put on her. And she goes to Tamlin and says, hey, protect me. Save me. I love you, Tamlin. Tamlin, being an idiot, falls for it. And he asks the King of Hybern to essentially break the mating bond between Feyre and Lysander. In that sort of commotion, more Asriel, Cassian, the sisters, and Lysander went away and they take the book with them, which the king finds stupid because he wants the book. Anyways, the bad gang goes back to Velaris, tell Amren everything, and then Lysander, surprise, reveals that the mating bond was actually not separated, which I hate because that would be so interesting. The day before they all went to Hybern, that night, Lysander and Feyre got married. She is now High Lady of the Night Court, which is again supposed to be a big deal, because usually the partners of the High Lords are just considered consorts and do not have equal political power. But he gave her equal political power. Women's rights. The last scene is Tamlin carrying the pretending to be helpless Feyre into the Spring Court. And it's implied that Lucien, probably knows what's up. The ends. Here's the number one thing that annoyed me about the plan of the King of Hybern. And cut. At this point, the video was completely unusable. My energy levels were so low. I didn't even understand what I was trying to say. So let me tell you what I want to tell you. I just don't understand the plan of the King of Hybern at all. So there are two scenarios that work. The first one is the King of Hybern always wanted to get the books himself, and the gang was just some meddling force that had to be dealt with. He did send Jurian to the Mortal Queens. He promised to make them immortal if they gave him the book. After all, he went out and hunted for the feet of the cauldron in the beginning, but this plan makes no sense. If that was the case, then why didn't the queens give the King of Hybern the book in the beginning? Why was there even a second meeting? Why was there a meeting at all? They were already convinced that the gang was evil when they found his spies. We see no attempt, no hint whatsoever that he ever went to the Summer Court to get the book. Also, apparently, only Feyre has the super special power to sniff out the book, and only Amren can decode the book. So, scenario 2, which was the one I was thinking, but it also doesn't make any sense, which is that it was always his plan for the gang to get both parts of the book, decode them, go to Hybern to destroy the cauldron, and then he traps them. Logic. However, this is stupid. Because, first of all, if that was his plan, then why didn't the Mortal Queens give them the book? Why didn't they give them the book in the first meeting when that was always the plan? Why did the Golden One have to sneak the book out to them? That makes you assume that the Golden Queen was always on the side of the King of Hybern, but she's not. She warned them about how the other queens are not to be trusted, and if she was on the side of the King of Hybern, why did she die then? Because we see her body in the battle in Velaris. Maybe they met with them a second time because they wanted to know about Velaris, but the King of Hybern didn't know that Velaris existed. Nobody did. Why was the attack on Velaris the catalyst for them to come to Hybern? The whole scene at the palace in Hybern seemed very planned out for something that was put in motion just about a day ago. If it wasn't the plan of the King of Hybern for them to bring him the book, then why was Tamlin and Lucien and everyone just there? I never explained this, but the mating bond in the fairy world is kind of like imprinting in Twilight. It's just this connection, and one fairy is meant for one male, and when they see each other they have this natural chemistry, and afterwards they don't care about anybody else. Every woman or man is irrelevant to them. They just care about that one person forever, and they apparently smell like each other. How did Lysander just know that they had the mating bond by looking at her, but she didn't realize it the entire time? And now, a list of Miss Ma's favorite words and things that you will often find in this book and that drove me insane. The words busybody, male, the word snarl, what is that? It's sometimes it's an action that they do with no words, and sometimes it has words. What's that supposed to sound like? The word prick, every person has callous hands. The word vulgar gesture. One of the main themes of this book is feminism, it's something I don't know how to feel about. You know, it's true that in the beginning Faye was very sort of caged in her life and she's supposed to just play in parties and wear dresses for the rest of her life. And in the end, she goes back there, but as a spy with all the power and the same standing as her partner. But the way it was executed, I didn't like. It's very much sort of female liberation afforded by men through men. She never sort of takes ownership for herself. When a man calls her a slut, it's Lysander that defends her, okay? It's never her saying that she wants equal sort of setting or equal power. It's always Lysander giving it to her almost unasked. She never sort of demands any sort of equality for herself. And it's very much so that none of these women, neither Feyre or Mor, would ever be able to achieve anything on their own. It's all given to them by him. He puts them into positions of power. He enables all of their personal growth and they do none of their own. And this sort of irks me. I don't know if I explained this very well, but it's just all it's also very hand-fed. It's just also like elephant in the tea shop. It always gets mentioned how great Lysander is. I feel like Sarah J. Maas really wants us to go wild about, especially this line. This is about when Lucian tried to take her. Did you think I would go with him? He paused mid-bite, then lowered his fork. I heard every word between you. I knew you could take care of yourself. Yet I found myself deciding that if you took his hand, I would find a way to live with it. It would be your choice. I sipped from my wine, and if he had grabbed me, blah blah blah, then I would have torn apart the world to get you back. Also, Feyre dropped Tamlin surprisingly fast. There was not much of a conflict at all. After about 150 pages, she gives you this statement about her approach to love, which as a reader you might deduce from her actions, but the way she's just so sort of self-aware, especially not like a day after she left Tamlin, it's weird. I'm thinking that I must have been a fool in love to allow myself to be shown so little of the spring court. I'm thinking there's a great deal of that territory I was never allowed to see or hear about, and maybe I would have lived in ignorance forever like some pet. I'm thinking... The words become choked. I shook my head as if I could clear the remaining ones away, but I still spoke them. I'm thinking that I was a lonely, hopeless person, and I might have fallen in love with the first thing that showed me a hint of kindness and safety, and thinking maybe he knew that, maybe not actively, but maybe he wanted to be that person for someone, and maybe that worked for who I was before, maybe it doesn't work for what I am now. Feyre is so logical, in fact, about her love, that it feels like Sarah J. Maas is directly spoon-feeding you what she wants you to think about every character. Tamlin is almost reduced to a 2D character. Even all the nice things that he apparently did in the first book are completely sort of rewritten and said that Lysander actually not all of them. The music that appeared in Feyre's cell when she was just about to lose hope and give up before the third task was actually not from Tamlin. No, it was actually from Lysander. Furthermore, all the mistakes that Lysander seemed to have made in the first book also just get completely and immediately rewritten. The narrative gets changed. It was actually not weird and cruel for him to basically drug Feyre every night and have her dance on him. No, he wanted her to forget her worries. He could just have given her the potion in her own cell. There's no reason to take her out. And also, okay, that kiss that Tamlin and her had under the mountain is sort of reframed as that, why didn't he save you? Why didn't he take you away from this place? I would have known, but instead he just kissed you. He just wanted your body. Bitch, why did then the first book explain in length why she couldn't escape? How dangerous the Ator, the guards, and Amarantha was. You think they could have just walked out of there, have some grand plan. The book clearly framed it that they couldn't, and sort of as like a moment of passion without thinking. With sort of Tamlin being reduced to a 2D character, Lucian did too. Lucian has sort of no agency. He just does whatever Tamlin says. He never says no. He was described as a friend in the first book, but here he just seems like a lackey. Maybe it's because I read 4 novels of Throne of Glass, but it seems to me that Sarah J. Maas doesn't always plan out her series the entire way through, because between the 3rd and the 4th book of Throne of Glass, there's a male character introduced for Eileen, and I very much didn't get in the 3rd book at all that they were supposed to be a romantic couple. I thought they were just friends. I thought they were like soulmates but platonic. And then all of a sudden the 4th book came and they were in love, and I was so confused. Again, it's just not as slutty as it could have been too. They're like 2-3-ish scene. Her chosen words, by the way, are considerable length and bundle of nerves. I'm also sad to report there were different POVs at the end of the book, and I hate different POVs. I just don't care about Lysander's inner world. I think you should never know too much about a love interest, because then they get boring and unelusive. I'm not sure if Feyre is already pregnant or if she just will very soon. However, it is said that after a nightmare she vomits. She vomits all the time, so I think she will vomit after a nightmare and think it's just a nightmare, but it will be a baby. Honestly though, if it doesn't, if she turns out to not be pregnant at all, I'm sort of even more disappointed, because then what was the point of any of that? If she does get pregnant and is at the spring court now, does she pass it off as Tamlin's baby? Furthermore, does she have to have sex with Tamlin now? If they don't, that would be suspicious, because she, apparently is in love with Tamlin and Lysander was just a curse. Overall, I give this book like a solid 3 out of 5 stars. I like it enough. I will definitely read the 3rd book very soon. I think I'm going to head out now. Have a dapper day.